Little land. Once, there was a little bit of land. It was not very big like a mountain that reaches up to the clouds. It was not very tiny like an island of moss in the middle of a rushing creek. It was somewhere in between, and just big enough for the life that lived upon it. It had existed for a very long time. It had not always looked as it does now. 500 million years ago, it may have looked like this. Or 67 million years ago, a bit like this. There was even a time about 100,000 years ago when it was covered in thick layers of ice. It was very cold, and life seemed to have left for good. Eventually, over many years, the ice melted and the water flowed, reshaping the land. Life began anew. Change was ever present, but one thing remained constant. The land provided for all the life that lived upon it. It provided soil rich in nutrients to help plants grow, flowers with nectar for insects, rivers for fish to swim in, and food for birds, bears, and all other kinds of animals, and their families. Change was not always slow and small. Sometimes it was sudden and big. A storm would come, a fire might start, and the land would burn. Sometimes it burned so much that what remained was no longer recognizable. But even fire belonged to the land. And eventually, life and land would find a way to begin anew. But some change does not belong to the land. It belongs to people. Not so very long ago, people built a house on this little bit of land. As the years passed, more people moved in. More and more houses, and more buildings, factories, cars, and power plants were constructed. Until the land was so covered, many rarely thought of it anymore, except when they wanted to take from it. Then they dug into the land too for everything they needed to make those buildings, factories, cars, and power plants work. At first, no one noticed that there was a problem. Well, maybe some did. Change was slow in the beginning, but it gained power. Life and land creaked and slid, a tipping out of balance. Every change was faster than the one before, and it kept going until it seemed unstoppable. But even when things seem unstoppable, unrecognizable, and beyond repair, look closely and listen too. Can you hear the little land talking to you? With help and care, life and land can find a way to begin anew. Do you know a little bit of land? Is it in a backyard, a forest, or a garden? Maybe it's in a clay pot by your window. It might be as small as an island of moss in a sidewalk crack. Or is it much bigger and surrounded by stars? No matter how big or little, you can take care of it. And when you give love to something, it will give it back to you.